Thank you for making Locked On Yankees your first listen every day. We're free and available on all platforms. On today's show, the players and owners met for just over 2 hours on Monday and things were discussed. And they're planning on meeting today. So is this a good sign? Perhaps. We'll talk about that. Plus, MLB says no to the Tampa Montreal timeshare, and we'll talk about Meatloaf and Phil Rizzuto and how Paradise by the Dashboard Lights' infamous baseball call came to be. And just a warning, I might be singing. Next on Locked On Yankees.
You are Locked On Yankees, your daily New York Yankees podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, Yankee fans. It's Tuesday, January 25th, and I'd just like to say that at the end of yesterday's show, I told you all to have a nice Wednesday. I don't know. I just wanted to address that because I did notice it when I was editing things, and yeah, I apologize for that. But you know how a Monday can be? Everyone knows how that is. So I'm joined by my co-host, Abbey Mastracco. Abbey, how are you?
I am good. I'm in a hotel in Washington, D.C. right now. I just spent the last 4 days with the Washington Capitals to sort of talk to some people about Ovechkin's chase to surpass Wayne Gretzky on the NHL's all-time goals list. So pretty interesting weekend. I'm really looking forward to putting that story together. I got some really, really insightful stuff from teammates, past executives. So for any hockey fans out there, look for that story next week when it comes out on Bleacher Report. I had a lot of fun working on this one, but I've been keeping an eye on baseball and what's going on with the contentious, how many times, that's like a drinking game. How many times are we going to hear that word? Contentious labor negotiations. And it's not good. It's not looking good right now.
No. Yeah. We'll discuss that in a second. Let me just remind everyone where they can find us. Apple, Google, Audacity, Spotify, Stitcher, everywhere you find podcasts. You can watch us on YouTube. We passed Babe Ruth's home run total over the weekend, so yay. And if you have a smart device, you can tell it to play podcast Locked On Yankees. So yeah, it's good that they met yesterday. It's good that they're going to meet today, but we
keep treating like every meeting as like a positive thing because we went so long without any sort of meetings. But what I love right now is the like the paparazzi photos. It's not real paparazzi. It's
right.
Just, Twitter. It's reporters. It's national reporters on Twitter.
Yeah.
We're tweeting photos of like the executives coming into the meetings and like oh my gosh, what was it? It was Dick Montfort who had like purple shoes. One of the comments I saw in the picture was like, what's the opposite of drip?
Oh yeah.
like these guys all look the same, but it's like there's also these bystanders who are just sort of like interspersed into the crowd.
Right.
These photos coming out are like, I'm highly entertained by some of the like just the man on the street reporting that's going on right now.
I know. And I mean, this is what happens because there's nothing happening. So they have to do this instead of, I mean, it's too early for early spring training pictures anyway, which those are also my favorite reporter pictures. The used to be grainy cell phone pictures. Now at least cell phone cameras have gotten better. But sometimes you'll see those pictures where they're literally looking between a fence like this and you kind of see blurry players. So yeah, it's almost that kind of a thing. So they met each other. And, when we say the players and owners met, it was the representatives. It's not like every owner and every player is meeting. They'd have to have the meeting in like an auditorium if that happened. And it was 2 hours and 15 minutes just about yesterday. And they're planning on meeting again today. And there were some things.
2 hours and 15 minutes?
Yeah. Yeah. Reportedly. That's what.
Okay. That's yet another reason why this just does not seem positive to me. 2 hours, like, come on, like.
Yeah, there's a lot to discuss, and it feels like 2 hours and 15 minutes isn't enough to discuss everything.
I've done longer interviews than that. Like, they're just staring at each other from across the table. Like, you know what I want. I know what you want. We're not going to meet in the middle. And they're just like, what? Like Dick Montfort, like has his purple shoes on display and they're just like admiring them. What is 2 hours and 15, that's nothing.
I know, that really is.
That's
Now,
absolutely nothing.
they said, where is it? I have it in my head, but I want to look at the article so I get the info right because I don't want to screw that up. The free agency stuff, something came out where it seems the players are kind of pulling back a bit from that because they wanted it to be fewer years for them to get to free agency. I think the sticking point for them more than that is arbitration, which is what they're going to be going back and forth on. I don't know how to feel about that because there's been so much. We talk about.
Well, if you're raising the salary, then I think it's, they're going to probably give some concessions because this is all about salary structure, and this is about making sure that they make a decent living before they end their career, which is typically in their 30s, and then they've got to move on and find, unless you're one of the elite top players who is making millions and millions a year,
right.
Then you've got to find another career in your 30s, which is not always easy. And if they are willing to raise the minimum, the major league minimum, which I saw that they are, then it's probably not as big of a sticking point. But that does surprise me a little bit that they dropped that so easily, because that's been an item of contention for years that that the players have been pushing for, the players have been outspoken about.
Yeah. And let's see. This article is really long, and I want to get I want to get it right because I don't want to screw that up. It now seems likely the next CBA will require players to accrue 6 years of MLB service time in order to reach the open market, has been the case under prior agreements. So it's not going to be any less than that. And they always talk about service time manipulation, and the biggest example of that recently, and people always like bringing up, is Chris Bryant.
Yep. It's a pretty glaring example.
Yeah. I remember it happening at the time, and people talking about it, and because I was writing for a few sites at the time, and God, I feel like the owners get away with so much more. We were talking about it on the show yesterday with my guest Derek Helling, how odd it seems that a lot of fans are siding with the owners compared to siding with the players, because as you mentioned earlier, you have those few guys that make millions and millions of dollars, but the majority of baseball players don't make millions and millions of dollars.
And year over year salaries have been decreasing. Mm-hmm. And part of the reason that they wanted fewer years to reach free agency is because they're reaching free agency at a point in their career where they're in their 30s, and teams are saying, I don't want to pay millions of dollars to a 32-year-old pitcher who's had Tommy John already. Remember a couple years ago, it was 2018, because I was still covering the Mets. There was you could field an entire all-star team of unsigned free agents during spring training, and they all had to go to that. They all went to I think it was the IMG Academy in Florida, and they held their own spring training to try and prepare for when they finally got signed. And then the year after that, we had Dallas Keuchel and Craig Kimbrell, who were both unsigned into the season starting. And I remember the Mets looked into signing, I think it was Kimbrell, but they didn't want to pay what he was going to be worth in free agency for somebody that age.
Right.
So we're not exactly dealing with, you see the big giant salaries that come out. You get sticker shock, obviously, but that's not the majority of players. And the owners have been unwilling to, I was going to say play ball, but that's, I don't know that that's the right term, because I'm not trying, no pun intended. The owners have shown that they are trying to cut costs, and that's sort of the priority. And the second priority is winning for a certain amount of teams, not all teams. And I'm a little bit surprised that you knew that fans were going to side. There were always going to be fans who sided with owners. I'm surprised to see so many. Yeah. And I'm surprised to see that the free agency wasn't a bigger sticking point, and we're not discussing, or they just sort of, I don't know, maybe they didn't back down. I'm not in there. I don't know what's going on in the negotiations.
Right.
Maybe they didn't quite back down, but I that seemed to be something that in the last since the last deal was signed, what was that, 2016? That's something that I've heard from a lot of players was a big item of contention.
Yeah. I was a little worried when I saw that, and I thought, because I don't want them to make too many concessions just to get the season to start on time. And then something came out later in the evening, after the meeting happened and after stuff was, I guess, leaked, and we found out what was going on, that MLB is willing to cancel games if they need to.
That's such if that's their like damage control, well, you're doing more damage to your own brand. So I don't know what kind of like who said that or what kind of like crisis PR firm is now having to step in, because I saw that they told Evan Drellick like no, the players like the players union mischaracterized this. It's not a threat. It's it was taken out of context or something. And like, and if there are games that are canceled, it's just such a bad look. Fans are not going to be sympathetic to either parties at this point.
Right.
The fans are the ones who are suffering. Yes, there are a lot of players who are suffering too. There's a lot of players who are trying to get contracts who don't have contracts, major league, minor league. There's a players assistance fund that money may have to be doled out from there. And this is really unfortunate considering there were players who went an entire season without much money in 2020.
Right.
It's hard to get solid footing for a lot of these guys who are trying to come up through the minor leagues or get major league spots. But sure, yes, those players are going to suffer. Their families are going to suffer. But the fans are going to suffer the most. The fans are in the crosshairs here.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know what the league is thinking, saying, no problem, we'll just cancel games. You are doing so much damage to your own brand by throwing that option out there.
Yeah.
It took fans a really long time to come back.
Oh, yeah.
After the labor stoppage in the 90s. Hockey is still somewhat of a niche sport because it's had so many labor stoppages. Also because it tends to be very myopic, and it's like, oh, if you haven't been a fan since an original 6 team, then like we don't want you, you know.
Yeah.
Hockey doesn't do enough to grab new fans.
Yeah.
But really the same could be said for baseball too. So baseball is in danger of being relegated to a niche sport, and it's just like the league is just bringing it on itself.
Yeah.
It just makes no sense to me.
I don't even know how to do this. It's a new year, Abby. We're 25. We're 25 days in, but it's still a new year. And that means that you could still be actually doing your New Year's resolutions. I know I am. I'm still working out I'm trying to every day, and I'm trying to eat healthier. And that means I should probably include Built Bar in that plan, because Built Bar is the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar, but even better than a candy bar. And it makes you stick to your resolutions. So if you want to eat healthy and it gets boring for you, try a Built Bar. Built Bars contain 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, 17 grams of protein, and compare that to an actual candy bar that's 240 calories and 30 grams of sugar. So if you're not a huge fan of working out, you can at least eat something that tastes good, and all those flavors taste good. Coconut, almond, peanut butter brownie, raspberry cookies and cream, salted caramel, that's another good one, and my favorite, mint brownie, of course. Built is always coming out with new limited time flavors, so check out Built.com often to see what's new. Go to Built.com, use our promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off on your order. Again, that's LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. Thanks again for making Locked On Yankees your first listen every day. We're free and available on all platforms. Now, it's interesting with the whole baseball kind of shooting themselves in their foot thing happening the same time that football had one of its best weekends ever. You know, every game was riveting, especially the last one.
Like, this weekend was amazing for football.
Yeah. And, you know, football had its issues with certain things and people claiming that they were never going to watch football again. And
the Get Woke, Go Broke crowd on Twitter who claimed, like, you know, you guys are wading into the wrong controversy because people wanted to speak out against racism, which, like, shouldn't we just all agree that racism is bad? And like, it's the players who have to face it. Shouldn't they be allowed to talk about it? But anyway,
Yeah.
football survived, guys.
Right.
Sorry. The
Yeah.
NFL survived.
We sort of saw the same thing with baseball when it was happening.
It was the same across all sports. I mean,
Yeah.
it took a big push from the players to get the NHL to cancel games in the bubble, the playoff bubble, because they felt so strongly that we needed sort of a day of no sports, because sports tend to be, people say like, I like sports for the distraction, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the people who are on the field are humans. We had two incidents in hockey this weekend, two racist incidents in hockey, and look, they're still trying to unpack both of those and see what happened in both of those. But the bottom line is, it's about how Boko Imana and Jordan Subban felt in the moment when those gestures and slurs were being made.
Yeah.
And guess what? There are people of color in baseball, in football, in basketball, and they feel they have to face these things every day. And I just think it's really irresponsible for people to, maybe not irresponsible, but like, it's sort of a myth that you can just stick to sports, because the people on the field playing don't get to just stick to it. They're human beings who vote and have a say and have to face these things every day. So why should we just stick to sports when like these are more than just athletes on the field? Like, they're humans.
Right.
It's a very dehumanizing thing, and it's sort of like a fantasy to say like, I only watch sports for the distraction, like.
Right. You can say that sometimes it is, like sometimes like if your life is blowing up or whatever and you feel like you want to escape with sports, that's fine. But to make it seem like it's permanently like that, or that's the only reason, I don't know. It just, yeah.
Do we not sing the national anthem before games? Is that not political, social?
Right. Are there not giant flags covering entire football fields before football games,
Right. There's military appreciation nights.
Mm-hmm.
There are the president usually comes to the World Series or throws out a first pitch. That's a tradition.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand. I get where people are coming from when they say that I just want to tune out and want to watch baseball, but there's so many layers to it. And the last couple of years, we've been forced to sort of peel back the layers and recognize that these athletes are living, breathing people who have feelings, and they experience things like this in their day-to-day lives. And I just think it's just too much of a fantasy to say sports are only sports, and we never go outside of that box, because sports are an entertainment product, and entertainment does cross over into social issues. And, the lines are all really blurry these days. I'm sorry for the people who don't want the lines blurred, but the lines are very blurry these days. And I don't know that you can go back, and you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. So the NFL and the NBA have proven like they're going to be okay.
Yeah.
And that's the end of my rant. We can have human beings playing sports and appreciate them for all that they are.
Yes. Yep. Speaking of watching human beings playing sports, MLB decided to nix the idea of the Tampa, Montreal timeshare. That news had come out just before the playoffs, just before Tampa, they had won the division. They were heading into the playoffs again. They had made it far in the playoffs the year before. And the Tampa ownership had this idea that they were going to let everyone know, hey, by the way, next season, we're going to split between Tampa and Montreal. Have fun with that. And then MLB came out yesterday and was like, no, you're not doing that.
I love how you called it a timeshare, because immediately I just imagined like a vacation timeshare rental in Tampa,
Yeah.
Which is probably what the players would have had to do in that situation, because what you would probably see in that point is like, you'd see a lot of players not bringing their families,
Mm-hmm.
which then would be, it's going to hurt you when you're trying to sign free agents. It's going to hurt you when you are trying to, fill out your staff and hire personnel, because they want to bring their families with them to live with them through the season. A lot of these guys end up making the making this it's Florida, so they end up making it their permanent home. They put their kids in school there. They put down roots and settle in the community, establish themselves in the community. They wouldn't be able to do that if they're splitting time places. And I love Montreal. It is a wonderful city. It's beautiful. And if you've never been, you should definitely visit and get a bagel, because they also make great bagels, different than New York bagels, but great. And poutine is one of my favorite things. So, but you have to choose.
Yeah.
What's the more viable market? Well, it's probably, is it Tampa? Is it not Tampa? Maybe Montreal is a more viable market. There are a lot of people who still want a team there. There's a lot of anger after what happened after how the Nationals left.
Yeah.
I obviously know a lot of reporters in Canada from covering hockey, and they would love to have a team back there. I don't know how feasible it is to get a new stadium built in Montreal, because Olympic Stadium's not an MLB facility at this point.
Right.
But is the Trop?
I know.
So.
But I think this is really like Tampa, really trying to, force someone's hand into allowing them to build a stadium somewhere else in Tampa.
They want to build in Tampa, not in St. Pete. They want to build over near the Channel side where Amalie Arena is, and there's a whole entertainment district down there.
Like Ybor City? Is that what it's called?
No. Ybor City is a little bit further. It's close to Ybor City, but there's the Channel side is where the hockey arena is, and they built the family that owns the Lightning, and they have sort of been able to develop the area around the arena, and they've got like this whole entertainment complex over on Sharpman's Wharf, and they've got hotels, restaurants, bars, you do like water taxi tours, and a lot of the players live right across the bridge over in the Davis Islands. So it's a good setup. It's been very successful for hockey. And I know that baseball has said there's a bunch of land over near that downtown Tampa Channel side area that they would like to potentially put a stadium over near there, and then be able to sort of share all the entertainment options with this, in this downtown area. And I'm there all the time for hockey, and it's great. I can walk to the arena from a waterside hotel, and the players love where they live, and it's a great setup. I don't know what the financial structure is, if it's a similar deal to Oakland, where the owners are saying, oh, we can't possibly pay for an arena. The taxpayers have to pay for it, which, that worked in the 90s, but it hasn't worked taxpayers have the taxpayers don't really necessarily want to foot the bill. They've been voting in a lot of cities throughout the country. They've been voting those proposals down, and there's not a lot of sympathy for the billionaires right now. I'm sorry.
Right.
So I don't know what the argument is in Tampa. I'm not as familiar with that ownership group and their ballpark operations as I am with a few other ballparks throughout the country. But it would be a great thing if they could move something over into downtown Tampa. I don't know about the territorial rights. I know we've mentioned that before, and it's one of those things I keep reminding myself. I have it posted on my desk at home, like, look up territorial rights for Tampa, but I'm not in New York right now. So and also I think that post has just been up for so long that I tune it out now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
it would have been interesting just because of where Montreal is compared to, it wouldn't be that far for
it's a
Boston to get there, Yankees to get there, but I think they would have been because where would they have played? They would have played in Olympic Stadium, right?
Yeah, unless they can get a ballpark built.
Yeah.
Montreal and Boston also have a great rivalry in hockey. So that would have been a natural rivalry sort of built in. Yankees, Red Sox is one of the most storied rivalries in baseball, but the intensity of Bruins Habs is pretty fun too. So it would have been a cool storyline, and I don't know. I love Montreal, and I would love to see them get a baseball team. My friends in Montreal really want a baseball team again, and they swear up and down it's a viable market and that there's enough baseball fans there to make it work, and that it would also help, sort of bring more fans to the city. When you bring a major league team, you've got kids watching who say, like, I want to go play baseball. They haven't had as much of that in Montreal since the Expos left.
Yeah. And that's a long time ago now.
Yeah.
When we're in 2022 now, which every day I think to myself, how are we in 2022? How is that possible? 2022 seemed like so futuristic when I was a kid. And now that I'm here, I mean, yeah, there's some things that are futuristic. My phone is basically like a computer, which is pretty cool. But everything else about it is still the same nonsense. My thought is, I feel bad for Tampa. I'll say this quickly because we have to get to the next segment. I feel bad for the people in Tampa. You really want
to sing, don't you?
I do want to sing. No, I feel bad for the people in Tampa just because, they have a good team to root for. And it's a pain in the ass to get to that stadium in St. Petersburg. Not that much of a pain in the ass, but it is because you have to go down the peninsula.
It's just not an ideal location.
Yeah.
I guess it is if you live in like Sarasota. It's not terrible, but the majority of the fan base does not live down near the peninsula. They live in the not in the St. Pete area. They live in the Tampa area.
Yeah.
And I've been to both places. I've spent a lot of time in the Tampa area for hockey, and it's a great area. St. Pete is beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there's a rest stop in St. Pete that's like, I always joke to my friend every time we have to go there. I'm like, this is the most beautiful rest stop in the country. No joke. It's the most beautiful rest stop in the country. And you see people like stopping at a rest stop just to like take photos. But the reality is, if that's not where your fans are, you need to go where your fans are. And if that's not where, the entertainment options are, because that's what fans want. They want to be able to like go watch a game with their friends, or, at a bar outside of the arena, you want to be part of the arena experience or the ballpark experience.
Right.
They want to be able to like go have a drink with their friends before a game, and then like, leave a Sunday day game and go to the bar and watch the Bucks game or watch the Lightning game. That's what they want to do. They want, families want some entertainment options when they take their kids to a game, and they want it to be accessible.
Yeah.
They very much want it to be accessible.
We were talking about the NFL, and BetOnline would like to wish you all a happy new betting year because we're continuing the march through the playoffs. The championship games are this weekend. The Bengals are there for the first time since I was a junior in high school, and that was a long time ago, so good for Cincinnati. Jeff Carr, our Locked On Reds host, very excited about that. BetOnline remains the number one spot for all the best sports wagering action for 2022. It's a new year, and there's a new updated desktop and mobile website. So sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code LOCKEDON to get started. From football, basketball, hockey, boxing, and UFC, right down to your favorite Vegas casino games, don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for 2022. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to wager on all your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. I won't sing. So
You can sing.
We got the sad news this weekend that Meatloaf passed away, and that's a big bummer for people in my age range because, as I was telling Abby before the show started, I was born in 1974. Bat Out of Hell came out in 1977, the very end of it, and then throughout 1978, that's when the songs hit big. And you couldn't go anywhere, honestly, without hearing 2 Out of 3 Ain't Bad and Paradise by the Dashboard Light. I actually have clear memories of being at a pool in Westchester County. My brother was an itty-bitty baby, and someone had a radio, and 2 Out of 3 Ain't Bad was playing. I was not even 4 years old, and I remember that clearly. And as a kid growing up in the 80s, you go to dances, school dances and stuff. And Paradise by the Dashboard Light was one of the songs that made junior high me and my junior high friends go absolutely, I'll say it, apeshit at the dances. Every time you heard it start, we'd run into the middle of the dance floor, and And when you think about it, if you know about Paradise by the Dashboard Light and you listen to the lyrics, it's basically about how two teenagers are trying to sleep with each other. And it's so inappropriate for 12-year-olds to be, excited about a song like this, but that's how the 80s were. I mean,
That's
I used
how,
to,
I mean, my friends and I talk all the time about how like "Back That Ass Up" was our favorite song in middle school. It's like,
yeah,
you know,
that's a little more,
Pony by Genuine. Like I had
yeah.
no business knowing all of the lyrics to that when I was like 13.
Yeah, yeah. And it's funny too because you get later into music and everything was a little more in your face, where in the 80s, yeah, like the lyrics, when you hear them, you're like, oh, right, that's what they're talking about. But, Olivia Newton-John's Physical, which, by the way, was number one 40 years ago right
Don't
now.
sing that. It's just going to get stuck in my head. And it like, ugh, that one doesn't come out. It doesn't leave your head once it's there.
I was in second grade when that song was out. My friend had the 45. I had the album. But when we had indoor recess, we would play it and sing it. And my teachers would giggle at us because we didn't know what we were singing about at 7. And now that I'm an adult, I just laugh at all the songs that I used to sing about when I was a kid and thinking, wow, that's so inappropriate. So Paradise by the Dashboard Light was highly inappropriate, but very fun. And the story goes, Meatloaf was a big Yankees fan growing up, and that happened to a lot of kids who didn't live in New York because they were the Yankees. Like, they were the team that was constantly winning. So kids would, idolize them. And in 1976, he was recording Bat Out of Hell. And they came up with the idea of, because the song was about rounding the bases in a car, why not get Phil Rizzuto to do the play-by-play? And the story goes, Rizzuto did kind of like a flat first take. And he explained to Meatloaf that, I'm not in a broadcast booth, I'm in a recording studio, and I kind of need to see the action. And legend has it that Meatloaf put pizza boxes around the studio and was pretending to slide into them as if he were a baseball player rounding the bases, which kind of helped Phil Rizzuto do his infamous part of that song. And, in the subsequent years after the song was released, Phil Rizzuto claimed to not know what the song was about, but Meatloaf came out and said he knew. He just, I think the story is that a priest, he didn't want to get in trouble with a priest. So he was telling people, oh, yeah, no, they just called me in and I was just doing it and this and that. But Meatloaf had come out in recent years and said, yeah, no, Rizzuto knew what he was talking about. So, I was sad that Meatloaf passed away. He wasn't that old. He was only 74. 74 is not old, contrary to popular belief. People are living into their, Betty White just passed away at 99. 74 is still relatively young compared to that. And, it's fun listening to that song, though, because I grew up watching Yankee games and hearing Phil Rizzuto, all the way until he stopped doing games in, what was it, the late 90s? When he stopped doing it, because he was still doing it when Jeter was a rookie. He called Jeter's actual first home run. So, yeah, you grew up with both of them, and yeah, that just I like that connection. I think that's great. Yeah, I just laugh though with the songs. They're highly inappropriate, and then sometimes you even listen to the songs that guys choose for walk-up songs, and you're just like, I don't know if I would play that with kids in the stadium, and then some of them put like the edited version, but still you have lyrics that may not be curses, but they may be like, you're sitting there going, yeah. So I had to talk about that because I love baseball, I love music, and that made me sad. And no, I'm not going to sing. But what I used to do on the show when we were just an audio show, if the Yankees won 2 out of 3 in a series, I would play a very short snippet of 2 out of 3 ain't bad. So I didn't get in trouble for copyright purposes because you can play like 7 seconds and I would always do like 5 seconds. So yeah, so that was a bummer for kids my age and, anyone born in the 70s, really, like late 60s into the mid 70s. Meatloaf was really, like I said, that album came out in 77. People were still playing songs from it well through the 80s. So he had a lasting impact on our childhood. And I just always loved that connection with Phil Rizzuto. So, yeah, fun times.
Meatloaf was a little bit ahead of my generation, but I mean, I don't know why. Like, I'm obsessed with Stevie Nicks, and I'm named after a Beatles album. So, like, I obviously pay attention, or like, I'm a fan of, I guess what you call classic rock these days. But I don't know, Meatloaf just missed me. But I've heard I've heard good things from the baseball community about him. So
Yeah, and he sang
very sad
the
news.
national anthem at the '94 All-Star game, and he took batting practice, and someone had actually put the video up on YouTube of him doing the national anthem, and they showed people's reaction. Like David Cohn was there, and other players were there, and they were reacting to him singing it. And I remember watching that live, and because, it was a big resurgence when Meatloaf had his big song in late '93, early '94. It was like, oh, Meatloaf's back. So, yeah, the baseball connection was always there with him. He was always walking around with his Yankee stuff. And, yeah, we'll miss Meatloaf. Rest in peace, Meatloaf.
Very sad news.
Yeah. So, tomorrow's show will probably be, we'll find out what the hell they're talking about today. If anything new is happening, if anything bad happens between them, hopefully not. Hopefully it's not a contentious meeting. Hopefully it's a little longer than 2 hours and 15 minutes, and maybe they get some stuff done.
Contentious negotiations. Take a drink.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Hold on. We're both drinking. If you're not watching us on YouTube, we're both drinking. And I have
like green powder in here because
yeah, I brushed my teeth before we recorded, and it's still in my mouth, and I just drank iced tea. So that wasn't pleasant.
I have like green powder in here because I feel like when I'm traveling, sometimes I don't eat enough vegetables. And I had a lot of whiskey last night, and this tends to help. After the game.
Yeah,
the Capitals let us play with puppies last night at the game.
Yes, Abby put pictures up on Instagram, and I was squeeing as I was looking at them, at the puppies.
Such cute puppies. Go adopt a puppy if you are able to adopt a puppy and give a puppy a good home.
Yes. So that is it for this episode of Locked On Yankees, which is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Abby and I would like to remind you that you can listen to this show in Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Odyssey, Spotify, Stitcher, or anywhere else you get your podcasts. You can watch us on YouTube. And when you get into your car, you can tell your smart device to play podcast Locked On Bets. Now make your second listen of the day Locked On Bets, your daily one-stop shop for all your gambling needs. Locked On Bets is hosted by your boy Q with expert analysis and insight from Lee Sterling. One more thing. If you could be so kind, please rate the podcast and spread the word about this podcast to your fellow Yankee fans. We would really appreciate it. Enjoy your Tuesday. I got the day right, and we'll talk to you all tomorrow.